We've all been sold on the same idea, right? If you want real privacy, you gotta use an app with end-to-end encryption. It's the gold standard. But what if that's only half the story? What if the real threat isn't someone reading your messages, but the fact that they already know exactly who you are?
So let's just get right to it and ask the big question. You're using Signal, WhatsApp, Telegram. You think your conversations are locked down, totally secure. But are those private messages really private? You know, the answer might actually shock you. Because the privacy breach, it doesn't happen when you send a message. It happens the second you sign up for the service. Yeah, before you've even typed a single letter, you may have already given away the one thing that truly matters, your identity.
And that gets us to the absolute heart of the issue. This isn't about weak encryption or some secret backdoor. It's about a fundamental flaw in the design of almost every single communication app we use. Your identity. That's the real target. This right here breaks it down perfectly. These apps do a fantastic job protecting one thing, the content of your messages. That stuff is scrambled, it's secure. But the one thing they systematically expose is the most critical piece of the puzzle. You, the person sending the message and the person receiving it. So what we're talking about is something called an identity-based architecture. It's a fancy term for a simple concept. These tools are built from the ground up to know who you are. They demand a phone number or an email or a social media handle, and that little piece of information becomes your permanent digital fingerprint. A fingerprint that by design is easy to scrape, leak, and track. Okay, so why? Why do they need to know who you are? Why is it so important to tie your real-world identity to the app? Well, it's pretty simple. In a free, ad-supported world, you are the product. Advertisers need to know they're pitching their stuff to real, identifiable people, not a bunch of bots. Your identity is literally the currency that makes their whole business model run.
And here is the truly wild part. This whole system, which demands your identity for so-called safety, is completely broken. Think about it. A platform like Facebook has to remove roughly 2 billion fake accounts every single quarter. So not only does this architecture put real users at risk, it doesn't even do a good job of stopping the bad guys.
Now, this isn't just some abstract theoretical problem. This has real-world consequences. Let's look at a few cases where secure apps failed people not because the encryption broke, but because their identities were totally exposed. First up, let's talk about Operation Trojan Shield. This was a brilliant, massive sting operation. The FBI didn't bother trying to crack a secure app. They just created their own. They built a platform called Anom and marketed it to criminals as the most secure, encrypted communication tool on the planet. The result? Absolutely staggering. The FBI gathered metadata from over 27 million encrypted messages, and that led to more than 800 arrests all around the world. They never had to read the messages. They just had to know who was talking to whom, when, and where. That was enough. And that really leads to the chilling takeaway from the whole Anom sting. You don't need to break military-grade encryption to completely ruin someone's life. You just need to watch the patterns. Watch how they use the system. The metadata tells the whole story. And this isn't just something that affects criminals or international spies. In 2021, a high-ranking Catholic priest was publicly outed for using the dating app Grindr. He was careful, he never used his real name or any identifying photos on his profile. But it didn't matter. So how on earth was he identified? Well, a news outlet just bought a dataset. It was commercially available app data. And this data didn't have his name, didn't have his messages, but it did have his device ID, his location data, and timestamps. By simply matching the patterns of his phone's movement between his home, his office, and various bars, they de-anonymized him. He was forced to resign, his whole life was turned upside down by the digital breadcrumbs the app was designed to leave behind.
Okay, for our last case, let's go to China. Protesters were using Apple's AirDrop to share digital flyers with each other, thinking it was a totally anonymous way to get the word out. They were dangerously wrong.
So here's the flaw. When you use AirDrop, your phone is quietly broadcasting a little digital fingerprint, a cryptographic hash of your phone number and email to any other Apple device nearby. What the authorities did was collect these hashes and then work backwards. They reverse engineered them to find the original phone numbers, linking the anonymous files directly to the real-world identities of the protesters. People were identified, questioned, and even detained because of it. Look, the pattern in all of these stories is just crystal clear. The encryption technology worked. The messages themselves were safe.
but the person was not. And that's the key takeaway here. Encryption protects the message, but it does not protect the messenger when the entire system is built on identity.
So after seeing all these failures, it becomes obvious that just slapping more encryption on messages isn't the answer. The very foundation is the problem, which forces us to ask a really important question. Is there a different way to do this? And that brings us to a whole new philosophy, one built from the ground up to solve this identity problem.
Let me pose this question to you. What if the problem isn't about building stronger walls to protect the data you give away? What if the real solution is a system that has no data to leak in the first place? Think about that for a second. Nothing to leak.
This is the absolute core idea behind a fundamentally different approach to communication. An approach built on privacy from the very start. Privacy by design. And the app that actually embodies this philosophy is called PRVC.app.
And there it is, PRVC.app. It is built on that one single, incredibly powerful concept we just talked about, identity-free communication. The entire goal isn't just to protect what you say, but to protect you, the person saying it, by simply never asking who you are to begin with.
So what makes it so different? Well, it starts by getting rid of all the things we just saw cause so many problems. There's no phone number required, no email address, no username or password. There are no central servers, so there's no central place collecting all your data or metadata for someone to steal or subpoena. The entire system is designed so there's no account to recover, which means there's simply nothing that can be traced back to you. It directly fixes the vulnerabilities we saw in all those real-world cases.
And it all comes back to this simple but profound truth. The safest information is the information you never gave up. See, true security, true privacy, isn't about building bigger, stronger walls around your data. It's about never creating that data in the first place.
Which leaves us with one final thought to really chew on. If an app's very first question to you is, "Who are you?" can it ever truly protect you?